Alright guys, so I'm here with my good friend Matt Dennion.
Hey, how you guys doing? Happy Godzilla Day, of course, to everybody out there.
Yeah, it is got the Big G's 70th anniversary. Matt, did you check out the live stream?
Parts of it, but not most of it. No, I was preoccupied.
Nah, that's alright. Pretty decent. I wish they had captions. That's my thing, is that
Yeah.
I wish they just had captions in the live stream. And I was like, I'm not sitting here for 6 hours if I can't understand it.
Yeah, that's why I did some other things instead. It's tough to watch and not know exactly what's coming up next or going on. But, yeah, hey, we'll take it. At least we got to see parts of it, right? So it's cool.
Yeah. So the thing we're going to be talking about is, like I said, I told you guys I was going to go more in depth with the news of Justice League versus Godzilla versus Kong 2 with Matt. So here we are.
Yeah, I'm excited. We got this news just dropped a couple days ago, and you and I thought that this would likely occur based on the sales of the last series, how well it did. We actually thought one of the storylines might carry over. It doesn't necessarily look like it will, but we got some very neat announcements for characters that will be included in this upcoming series.
Yeah, Ghidorah, Rodan, and Mothra all coming here. Which begs the question, what the hell is this continuity?
Yeah, they did kind of say that it's not mainstream DC or MonsterVerse, so it you couldn't look at it and say, oh, it fits here in the MonsterVerse necessarily. Now, that being said, I still wonder if they'll have some way for King Ghidorah to come back. They didn't really play up the connection with Mechagodzilla in the first comic. But as you know from the movies, that was there. So I'm interested to see how they do that, or if they just kind of skip over it.
Yeah, I'm curious about that too, because I'm like, well, you did Mechagodzilla. It doesn't make any sense that you're now suddenly doing, like, Ghidorah, like, right after.
Right. I'm assuming it's, obviously because he's so popular is why he's in there. But I'm not sure how story-wise it'll work out, though. No. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah. I really definitely think that it is cool. Ghidorah's my favorite kaiju outside of Godzilla, so to see...
Sure.
And MonsterVerse Ghidorah is just an excellent design, and I really loved his... to see more of him is really cool. And it does show that Toho is willing to work with them more.
Yeah, I was actually quite surprised with getting those three characters. I really enjoyed the first comic, but it focused primarily on, like, the original MonsterVerse kaiju. I know, like Scylla, Behemoth, of course, heavily Godzilla and Kong, but I'm very excited to see these three show up, especially for some of the interactions we could get with the DC characters.
Yeah, I think that's why we didn't see them in the first one, was because they just didn't have Toho was like, not right now.
I agree. I think that with the sales that they were like, yeah, let's make this thing work. Probably Legendary is willing to put out a little more money to get the characters based on how well the first one did, knowing that, adding those three monsters would certainly help out the sales for the second one as well.
Absolutely. I do think that it is, like, does beg the question of, like, what else are they like, could we get more leeway with Toho monsters in the future, not just in comics, but, like, in the rest of the media too? Could we get, like, Rodan, Mothra, and Ghidorah in Monarch now?
Yeah, I think we could, which would be very cool, so I hope we would get that. Yeah, that'd be great if we could get them to show up in there. Mothra in particular makes a lot of sense, I feel like. Yeah.
So, I guess, like, one thing I want to see Ghidorah meet Darkseid.
Yes, I think that would be a pretty cool thing. It would make a lot of sense as the type of thing Darkseid would do. They're both big evil, big bads. Of all characters, Darkseid might make the most sense to show up because it's been established in DC continuity that he's pretty much multiversal. So, Darkseid has access, or a soul clone type of thing of him can appear in any universe.
Yeah. And I would love to have this scene where, like, Ghidorah just is wrecking house. Like, it'd be a cool reference to Darkseid versus Galactus.
Yes, that would be very cool. Because Ghidorah fills a similar role in most Godzilla continuities that Galactus fills in Marvel. So that would be cool. One thing I really want to see, and I can't imagine we're not going to see it, is like Wonder Woman and Mothra teaming up, like Wonder Woman riding Mothra. They both are like semi-goddess figures in their continuities, both female protectors of Earth. I think it's too good a possibility for them to pass that up, right? To have those two together.
Yeah. Oh, 1 second. Sorry about that. You were saying, Matt?
Sorry. I said I think it's too good a possibility to not have Wonder Woman and Mothra team up with all their commonalities they have. They're both goddess figures. They're both protectors of Earth. They're both sometimes associated with like being peaceful more than warlike, although they can certainly both kick butt. So I think having those two in like a scene where they work together, where Wonder Woman's riding Mothra, would be a pretty awesome thing to see in this upcoming crossover.
Yeah, I would even love to see like Mothra on Themyscira.
Yes, that would be great too.
Like just see her like fly over and everyone just like, I would this scene of like all the Amazonians like kneeling before her.
That would be cool, but I don't think you're going to get it because it looks like this story takes place in the MonsterVerse universe this time.
Yeah, okay. That's what we kind of thought anyway.
Yes. It looks like the one still we got is Lex Luthor seemingly teaming up with Lee Shaw from the Monarch series, which I think is an interesting pick for like the Luthor team-up villain, if you will.
You think it would have been Charles Dance's character?
Yeah, was it the Jonah character from
Jonah.
King of the Monsters, right?
Yeah.
But they went with the Monarch character, which is interesting because he did come off as sort of like a villain as the show went on, but he wasn't necessarily started that way from the beginning. So that's an interesting pick there. Another interesting thing, one of the other images we got, is that of Kaiju Killer Croc fighting Kong.
That's another thing that really got me, was that we're going to see kaiju versions of DC characters.
Yeah, based on one of the stills we saw, we also saw what looked almost like a Suicide Squad. We saw Peacemaker and Killer Croc and King Shark and Harley Quinn in there. But I think we'll likely get a King Shark kaiju I could see, because he kind of fits that same mold as Killer Croc. Cheetah was also in that picture, who'd be interesting as a kaiju version. And they're all kind of like animal people. They're anthropomorphic. So I could see that if that's the theme they're going to go with.
Yeah. It also brings up the thing of, like, now the MonsterVerse, Monarch, and humans at large now have to see, like, actual superheroes. And they're already dealing enough with monsters, now they have to, like, see meta-humans.
Right, if they're going to see the likes of a Superman and a Wonder Woman and a Green Lantern showing up all of a sudden, is really going to be an interesting take. Like, wow, monsters are one thing, but this is like a whole nother level kind of deal, which should be pretty interesting.
Absolutely. Like, it's like, oh my, they're literal gods.
Yes. I could totally see that being a thing. So I'm interested to see how that works out as well.
Absolutely. I'm like interested to see that. It does make me like wonder, like, what other human characters could we have interact with each other? Like, it'd be kind of cool to see Brian Tyree Hill's character, the what's his name? Benny?
Bernie.
Bernie, thank you. What? That's the problem with the MonsterVerse. A lot of forgettable characters.
Yeah, that is true. Like, if you try to think about it, other than Jonah, or I guess the character Lee from Monarch kind of stick out. I mean, otherwise, Gia, I can see Gia playing a role in this from the sort of Kong Whisperer from GVK and New Empire, right?
Yeah. Bernie would be having a ball with superheroes.
Yeah, Bernie would be fun, especially with his conspiracy things and stuff like that. He would be an interesting character to have in there.
Yeah. For other like other things I'd like to see in here, I would really like to see, like, I think it'd be cool to see, like, I know we got Atom Smasher. Giganta would be a cool fight with Godzilla or like Kong or something.
That would be cool. Giganta was briefly in the last one, but they didn't have her go over like 30 feet high. But I'd like to see her at a bigger scale this time. Two things I'd really like to see that I think would be cool interactions. One would be predominantly the Justice League, and I think with Kong in this case, because something we haven't seen, like the Justice League and Kong teaming up to take on King Ghidorah, I think would be really cool. And then as they're doing that, what I'd really like to see, since we already know we're getting Kaiju Killer Croc, I'd like to see Kaiju Doomsday, and then in a homage to Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, Godzilla, Rodan, and Mothra teaming up to fight Kaiju-sized Doomsday. I think it would be pretty awesome.
I would absolutely love that. You know what I also would I'm thinking could happen? We get MonsterVerse Mecha Ghidorah.
I think we could see that too, actually, yes. I do think we could see that, which would be pretty cool. It would kind of make sense following up, having seen Mecha Godzilla already, and I could see it being something Luther looks to incorporate.
Yeah, I mean, he's still got like the Apex tech, so...
Yeah, but I agree with you. The hardest thing I'm coming up with is like which other human characters from the MonsterVerse would be interesting to see, because like you said, there's not a ton who super stand out, and then like who really would like fit in interacting with a Superman or some of the characters from DC.
Yeah, totally. It is difficult to say. And it is funny because it's like this comic is going in a direction we were not expecting sequel wise, because we all thought you and I thought it was going to be Scar King.
Yes, yeah, we thought Scar King, possibly Shimo. I was not expecting King Ghidorah, Rodan, and Mothra. That's for sure. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm glad we're getting them, but I was not expecting that. So I'm not super sure where the story's going to go, and I was not expecting some of the DC villains at least to go kaiju either,
Yeah, this one looks like it's like, well, we gotta up ourselves. Like, that's the thing with comic book sequels, is like you always gotta like one up yourself.
Yes, yeah, and it makes me wonder who else we could see to help up things. Like, I don't know if I could see any of the heroes going kaiju. I'd love to see them bring in like Swamp Thing, who can go kaiju size, and see how he interacts with the MonsterVerse, and maybe looks at a character like Behemoth, where Behemoth is kind of seen as like a friend of nature. Maybe Swamp Thing could befriend that character, but I'm not really sure what else would go there. I think a more likely chance might be Martian Manhunter can actually go kaiju size, so that might be interesting to see him taking on something in that vein. Yeah,
I think that would be really cool too. I do think that another thing is like maybe we could actually get Kong versus Titano.
Yes, God, I teased that in the first one, I didn't get it. So that would be pretty neat, especially, actually, now that you mentioned it, they kind of laid the groundwork for that, because in the first one they established that Luther had at least some influence over Titano, so, and we were hoping we were going to get Kong fighting him, but maybe we will in this one, or Luther, like, maybe takes him over to the MonsterVerse world. Would be pretty cool.
Yeah, another fun idea, like, Apex enhanced Giant Metallo.
Oh, that's a good idea. I could see that occurring. Parasite would be interesting. Like, imagine Parasite draining off Godzilla's power.
Yeah, that would be. I think that would be like, that could be a cool kaiju-sized Parasite would be really cool. And it makes me also go, I have a feeling, since we did get those McFarlane dual packs with Kong versus Batman, which I was like, really, we're not doing Camazotz versus Batman? All right, fine.
Yeah, I was a little surprised about it, but I get Kong's more popular. I'm waiting to see what else we get, though. I'm hoping we get that Bat Mech and the Green Lantern mech. Would be pretty cool.
Yeah, I really hope that we get a 2-pack, like a future, because I do think actually these, if we get multiple like kaiju DC heroes or villains, they're gonna get figures. They're gonna get figures they're gonna get McFarlane figures. I already feel it.
Yeah, it's too much money not to be made there, right? Like, I think doing that would certainly sell. I mean, hell, I would buy them. I don't even buy too much figures anymore because I don't have space for them, but I already want those 2-packs that are coming out for sure.
Yeah, how much are they running for?
I haven't seen a price yet. I'm going to guess in the 40 to 50 range would be my guess.
It's Batman and Kong, and what's the other one?
They haven't announced yet. Just Batman and Kong. I think we can assume Superman and Godzilla.
Yeah.
And then I would not be surprised if we get Mechagodzilla and Batmech at the very least.
Yeah, it'd probably be, if they're going to do it, like, it'd probably be like a trinity. So Wonder Woman and Mecha, or Wonder Woman with Tiamat or something.
I think they can't pass price on the Batmech, though, right? Like anything Batman sells.
Yeah, that's true.
But I mean, they might do more than just 3. Who knows? We'll have to see.
Yeah.
But yeah, it does leave some first interesting stuff still. Like, can you imagine Hawkman and Hawkgirl trying to take on Rodan? Would be kind of interesting. I'd really like to see Raven take on Rodan. That would be very interesting.
Yeah. I think it'd be kind of cool to see, and I know they're in the MonsterVerse, but in the DC-verse, I'd love to see, like, Godzilla go to Dinosaur Island.
Would be pretty cool, yeah. Something else we talked about that I think could be very interesting for this crossover and might still work in terms of, like, a character being able to cross dimensions would be Starro.
Starro would be Starro would be a fun one for Godzilla to fight and the other monsters. I do think that, like, the other thing is too, and I guess like what we should talk about this now is that this comic is this universe, since it's not the real MonsterVerse or DC universe, excuse me. That means characters can die, as we saw in the first one. We saw Guy Gardner get killed unceremoniously.
Yeah, it was kind of, I think, Atom Smasher too. It was kind of like unsure about Atom Smasher, but with Guy Gardner, there was no doubt he was dead.
Yeah, Toyman died. Yeah, Toyman died. There was another death too.
I can't recall off the top of my head, but yeah, which is interesting because it kind of ups the stakes a little bit. We're like, so this can rock the status quo, so to speak. So we can see some interesting things there in terms of characters being killed off. But no, I'm very much looking forward to it, and I wonder if they'll carry over some of the connections from the first one, especially in the light of Kong. Like, it seemed like Kong made friends with Supergirl. I wonder if that will play a role again. I imagine it probably will.
Or do you think he'll get the ring again?
I'm thinking probably yes. I think there's a decent chance he gets the ring again, especially depending on the threat that we see.
Yeah.
Because I got to imagine we see some kind of bigger threat. It was one thing that I was a little disappointed at the conclusion of the last one, was just like, it's just like a Skullcrawler who was brought back to life. He wasn't, I kept thinking he was going to be combined with Doomsday, but it wasn't anything super up the ante necessarily. I think in this case, we should see it, because we've already seen Godzilla defeat King Ghidorah, so there needs to be more there. Granted, we are getting like the Kaiju Killer Croc at least, and I think more, probably King Shark again, and Cheetah would be my guesses.
Yeah. Maybe even Grodd.
Grodd would be an interesting one, yes.
I think it's safe to say, like, this one might be insane, and I hope Brian Buccellato and the creative team behind this kind of learned from the mistake, like, that you don't need to shove everything in at the last minute.
Yes, I hope they would piece themselves a bit better. The first one did a good job of giving us a lot of stuff that fans wanted to see. Superman fighting Godzilla. Even odd things like Atom Smasher fighting Godzilla was pretty cool. Beast Boy going Kong, stuff like that. But yeah, I think that they did write themselves into a situation where certainly they tried to cram a lot into the last issues. Hopefully they can piece it out a little bit better this time. But I'm glad for the most part the same team coming back.
Yeah, I agree too. I think it is. I think it's a smart idea. Yeah, and it kind of shows, like, maybe, and I always hope for this, like, maybe we could get a trilogy out of this.
I think that's a definite possibility. Here's something else. I know we talked about it before, but I'm going to bring it up again. We get at least 2 Batman TMNT comic crossovers, animated movie. We got a double Justice League Ruby crossover comic, animated movie.
I think
does this increase our chances?
I do think this increases our chance very much. But again, I think it depends on Toho at the end of the day, if they're going to be at least allowing Godzilla to show up in an animated film that isn't theirs.
Haven't they already? It's the one with the trains, Shin Kellyon?
That's true, yeah.
So they have. Granted, it was more of a cameo in that case. Obviously, in this time, it'd have to be legendary to work out the kinks. But if this one sells as well as the last comic did, I gotta think that there will be a market for that type of film for it to be done. So I could definitely see it being a possibility, especially with all this stuff. I mean, Toho is really pushing Godzilla into everything they can right now, which I am all for. I mean, just say we got the announcements of, like, I know they're like video games and merchandise things, but crossovers with, like, Digimon and Kaiju number 8. So,
and Gamera.
I think it's a possibility. And Gamera, yeah.
Yeah. Kaiju, yeah, the Kaiju number 8 one, it was like a cutesy one. Then you had the Gamera one for the mobile game. And you have Godzilla vs. Digimon, which I'm like, well, that game doesn't look great, but that Godzilla War Greymon did look pretty badass.
Yeah, it looked fun if nothing else. I mean, I don't know if it's something I'm going to super run out and get, but I at least like that Toho's putting Godzilla in different things. So I think an animated movie for this is a possibility, especially since they seem to have a very good relationship with Legendary at this point.
Yeah. I think also it's safe to say that that we could get a not only like a animated film but a third comic, and maybe this leads to also with it on sidebar Godzilla vs. Power Rangers 3.
Could be, yeah. Because did you read 2 yet or no?
Not yet. I'm waiting for trade.
Okay. I liked 2, not nearly as much as 1, mainly because of the artwork, but I could see it, yes. I could definitely see it. I also think this possibly opens a door for even more crossovers. Like, we're getting, right now, they just started the Monster Piece Theater, which is like Godzilla versus the public domain, which is kind of interesting. Yeah.
It does make you wonder, are they going to finally pull the trigger on Godzilla versus Transformers?
I would hope so, especially because the Energon Universe comics have been so well written. I know that the Transformers used to be with IDW, so that would be maybe a 4 point for IDW. I do think, though, this is really going to push forward the chance of, and we know the new writer has said it, of TMNT, he wants to do a Godzilla crossover.
Yeah.
I gotta imagine at some point soon we're getting TMNT Godzilla.
Absolutely. And hey, we're getting Sonic Justice League. Anything's possible.
I know. It's like, which will actually be running almost simultaneously with the Justice League Godzilla too.
Yeah. Can we stop for a second and say we live in a world where we're seeing the Justice League team up with Sonic and fighting Godzilla and Kong?
I know, it's crazy, and I love it. I'm in for both, honestly. I think that the Sonic one, I know, like, can on face value obviously look like I'm not so sure about this. However, I will give credit. I couldn't believe how good the Batman vs. Elmer Fudd comic was. You know, like, just as an example of, like, something I didn't think would work and turned out to be really good.
Yeah, but that's just Tom King being awesome.
That is true. But some of those other ones were pretty solid, too. Like, the Wonder Woman Taz one was pretty solid with her Hanna-Barbera crossovers. I was shocked at how Super Sun Dino was, actually. Like, again, ones I did not think would work out. Plus, obviously, with the Sonic one, we get to see Sonic racing the Flash, which I'm excited about. I'm sure most fans are. You know, it's one of those things you always talk about with your buddies somewhere. Hey, who would win a race? Sonic or the Flash type of deal, you know? Although I'm hoping we get Wally, because he's the fastest, right?
Yeah. And it makes you wonder, are we going to get, like, could it be possible now that Godzilla's actually crossed into anime, could we actually see from IDW them doing, because they just did, they're going to do, and we're living in this universe, TMNT Naruto.
I think we could see some IDW do some kind of crossover. For instance, Kaiju number 8, depending on how well that crossover goes there, could that be the next comic manga crossover yet? Is it out of the realm of possibility at this point?
I don't think so. I think also, like, Godzilla Attack on Titan.
Yeah, I think anything's possible, which is amazing to me. And you know, as we lived through a time where Toho kept Godzilla under lock and key for most things. Yeah. Where these crossovers now is very fun.
And I'm still mad at people like, oh, you know, there's too much Godzilla. I'm like, do you understand what we all had to live through?
I know, they don't know what it was like to live in the time frame from 2005 until now, when there was nothing, you know, up until the MonsterVerse started up, really. I'm very happy for it. I'm excited for this next crossover. The last one was a lot of fun. I wouldn't say crashed to landing, but didn't stick it perfectly, that's for sure. So I'm hoping this one we get some, you know, more interesting things. I'm very interested to see the Kaiju Killer Croc and other villains, hopefully.
Yeah, I am very much looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to seeing how they'll utilize Ghidorah, Rodan, and Mothra, especially. Um, I, yeah, and it makes you wonder, like, well, could we get Scar King in Shimo in here? I think save them for the third book. It'd be
At this point, I would agree. Yes.
Yeah, you've got Ghidorah, Mothra, and Rodan. You don't need to put in. You can save Shimo and Scar King for the third one.
Agreed. One thing I'd like to see from this one too is more Superman, because he was kind of sidelined for most of the last one. So I'd like to see how Superman, who they did do well in the last one in terms of, like, I like when he came back and he was like, I'm not here for a rematch, Godzilla. Like, Superman's not the type of character who needs to go out there and prove he's the strongest. He's like, what's best for everybody? So I'm interested to see how he would look at a world populated and semi-ruled by kaiju.
Yeah. And I think, like, he would understand, like, well, these people are, you know, they're scared, but I think he would, after seeing Godzilla and seeing what he represents, it'd be like he's kind of like me.
Yes, exactly. Especially in the MonsterVerse, we've definitely seen where, basically, New Empire in particular is really just a superhero movie with Godzilla and Kong being superheroes that are also monsters, right?
Yeah.
So I can see Superman sort of seeing, like, this is how, like you said, what I represent is on this Earth. It's not the same, but it's similar, where, like, Superman's not, he is more intelligent, but he knows, like, his power could kill anybody at any second. It's like that great speech he gives at the end of Justice League Unlimited where he lives in a world of cardboard. Yeah. It's similar for Godzilla, but we've certainly seen this Godzilla try to take steps as the movies have progressed, in particular, to not just be a force of destruction, like carefully climbing into the Roman Colosseum, for instance, instead of just smashing through it, stuff like that.
Yeah, and I'm gonna say, like, for just a fun scene, if we have Darkseid in this book, I want to see either Ghidorah or Godzilla do a beam struggle against the Omega beams.
That either one of those would be cool. It's something they have to do. Like, you got the Superman with the eye lasers, Godzilla one in the last one. It's kind of a expected thing in any Godzilla movie. Or Godzilla media? Do you think that Batmech makes a reappearance or something else?
I think it would be smart to have the Batmech return for series. It would be kind of funny too if we have the Batmech return. It gets destroyed and left behind in the MonsterVerse, and Monarch is like looking it over, and that's how we get Jaegers.
That would be kind of cool. I'm also wondering if they might introduce the mech from the latest Godzilla comic, the Godzilla and Kong prequel to New Empire.
Maybe it's kind of small though.
Well, I mean, it was comparable to Kong in size.
Yeah, but I thought it was like, in my head, I was thinking it was like just as big as Skull Island Kong.
No, right. It would seem that way because it was on Skull Island, but you have to keep in mind that it's literally leads into New Empire. So
that's true. Yeah.
From the Godzilla X Kong the Hunted comic would be. I'm not so sure we'll get that, but it would be neat to see that go up against the Batmech. But I do agree. Like, yes, this could lead to like more mechs in the MonsterVerse. I know we've been saying it for like a year now. Is Legendary finally going to give us a comic of the MonsterVerse cross Pacific Rim after this?
I think that's next on the list.
Yeah, I think it's got to be for them, right? Because they probably can't branch out as much as IDW can without stepping on certain toes, right? They kind of have to probably stay under the Warner/Legendary
banner
umbrella, I think.
Yeah, under that banner, yeah.
Yeah, which Pacific Rim obviously would fall under, and would be something that, especially in comic form, I think would be a worthwhile investment. I can see, like, in movies, might be like, no, we're going to make the money back on this. But for a comic, just to the fan base, I definitely think so.
Absolutely, yeah. Hell, by that train of logic, though, we could get Godzilla versus Looney Tunes.
We could. Hey, it's not something I'm wishing for, but it wouldn't surprise me at this point, right? Like with, like you said, we're getting Sonic versus the Justice League too. So,
yeah, it's just really cool to have all of this out. Like the fact that we are getting all of this is nothing short of just spectacular.
Yeah. Like you said, I know some people are like it's too much Godzilla. I love it because we had so much of nothing for so long, and now stuff we never would have envisioned seeing we're getting, and it's just fun. It's just a fun time to be a fan, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the case.
So anything else you can think of for this crossover we hadn't discussed yet? And we don't have a lot of information on it, which makes it a little tough. We've kind of been speculating on things we might want to see based on what we did get.
Yeah, but then again, Matt, the last time we speculated on this crossover, we were 90% right.
That is true. It's very true. We did get quite a bit of stuff done where we were joking that they must listen to your podcast before putting the comic together.
Yeah. So who knows? Maybe we were 95% right this time.
Hopefully. Let's hope so.
Right.
From our lips to the writer's ears, right?
Exactly. So yeah, there you go, guys. You guys tell us in the comments below, what are you hoping to see with this Godzilla vs. Kong vs. Justice League 2 crossover? And yeah, Matt, I want to thank you so much for coming on board for this video.
Yeah, always my pleasure. Anytime.
All right. And other than that, I'm Mr. Multiverse. I'll see you next time in the Multiverse.